Okay, so let's talk about the book of Exodus. You probably know the story, right? Slaves, plagues, a sea splitting in two. It's epic stuff. But what if that's not even the main point? What if this entire story, from that burning bush all the way to the Ten Commandments, is actually designed to point us to something, or, well, someone, much, much greater?
It all comes down to this one central question. How can a holy God actually dwell with a sinful people? I mean, think about it. That question beats at the very heart of Exodus. It's this huge divine puzzle that the entire book is trying to solve. You have the perfect and the imperfect and this massive gap in between. And the answer, well, it unfolds in what is probably one of the most dramatic rescue missions ever recorded. So picture this, the little family from Genesis, well, they have absolutely exploded into this massive nation. But there's a problem. They're not a powerful kingdom. They're enslaved in Egypt. They're oppressed, they're broken, and it really looks like God's promise to them is just failing. But this, right here, is precisely where God decides to act, staging what becomes the defining salvation event of the entire Old Testament.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting. The New Testament writers, they looked back at all these events in Exodus, and they didn't just see them as history, they saw them as shadows, kind of like previews of a greater ultimate redemption that was still to come. So every major event becomes like a signpost, pointing forward to a deeper, more profound spiritual reality.
And the biggest shadow, the one that really holds everything together, is the Passover lamb. The command was simple, but wow, so profound. Take a perfect, spotless lamb, sacrifice it, and paint its blood on the doorframe of your house. That act was the only thing that could protect a family from God's judgment. It's this incredibly clear, almost visceral picture of a substitute sacrifice pointing directly to Christ, who the Bible calls the true Passover lamb, whose blood saves us from God's final judgment.
Listen to this verse. When I see the blood, I will pass over you. Now think about what God doesn't say here. He doesn't say, when I see how hard you're trying, or when I see how good you are. No, he just says, when I see the blood. Their salvation had nothing to do with their own worthiness. It was based completely on the blood of that substitute. The protection was totally external to them. That's the key.
All right, then you've got Moses, this larger-than-life figure, right? He's the guy who stands between God and the people. He leads them, he speaks for them, and he passionately pleads with God when they mess up. He even offers his own life for theirs at one point. He's their mediator. But even Moses is just a shadow of the ultimate mediator, Jesus. You see, Christ doesn't just speak for God. He is God, creating a perfect, permanent bridge between us and our Creator.
And then there's the wilderness. A place where everyone should have just died. But God shows up in these incredible ways. He sends bread literally falling from the sky. They called it manna. And he makes water gush out of a solid rock. Life-saving, right? Well, fast forward centuries later, and Jesus stands up and makes this unbelievable claim. I am the bread of life, and offers living water. He's saying he is the real thing. He's the true provision that sustains not just our bodies for a little while, but our souls for all of eternity.
So all of this brings us right back to that huge, seemingly impossible question we started with. How can a holy God live with a sinful people? Well, God's first answer in Exodus was to give them a blueprint for a very special place, a tent where his very presence would live right in the middle of their camp.
This tent was called the tabernacle, and it was basically this mobile sanctuary, the spot where heaven and earth sort of intersected. But, and this is a big but, it had some really strict rules. To get anywhere near God's presence required absolute holiness. It demanded constant animal sacrifices for sin, and you couldn't just walk in. You needed a mediator, a priest, to go in for you. So it showed that, yes, it's possible for God to be with us, but it also showed that our sin is a very, very serious barrier.
And this is where everything clicks together in the most amazing way. The Gospel of John tells us that the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. Now get this, that word for dwelt, in the original language, it literally means to pitch a tent or to tabernacle. Do you see it? Jesus himself is the living, breathing tabernacle. In him, God finally came to live with us, not in a symbolic tent, but in a real person.
So when you start putting all these puzzle pieces together, this absolutely breathtaking picture starts to form. You realize that while Moses is a hero in the story, he's not the true hero of the story. The entire book of Exodus is pointing from beginning to end to its ultimate fulfillment in Jesus Christ.
So let's just run through it one more time. It's so good. Christ is the true Passover lamb whose blood saves us from judgment. He is the greater Moses who makes a perfect relationship with God possible. He's the real deliverer who doesn't just free us from slavery in Egypt, but from the power of sin itself. He is the true bread and the true water that gives us eternal life. And finally, he is the true tabernacle. He is literally God with us.
Look, the freedom in Exodus was absolutely world-changing for them, but it was physical. It was temporary. The redemption that Christ brings is spiritual, and it is eternal. He doesn't just rescue our bodies from some evil empire, he rescues our souls from the kingdom of darkness forever.
Okay, so this is all amazing stuff, right? But so what? What does this ancient story have to do with your life today? How does it actually change anything?
Well, for your faith, it means you can take a deep breath. You're saved because of the Lamb's blood, not because you're trying hard enough. For your marriage, it gives us this beautiful picture of what a faithful, sacrificial covenant relationship looks like. When it comes to your sin, it tells you that you weren't just struggling with a bad habit, you were totally enslaved, and Christ has truly set you free. And finally, for your worship, it reminds you of this huge truth. You weren't just saved from something bad, you were saved for a glorious personal relationship with God Himself.
Just try to put yourself in their shoes for a second. Imagine being in that house on that first Passover night. Terrifying, right? You're huddled inside listening to what's happening outside. You weren't safer because you were a better person than your Egyptian neighbors. No way. You were safe for one reason and one reason only, because God saw the blood on the door. That right there, that is the beautiful, simple, powerful heart of the gospel.
So here's where we land. The whole story of Exodus is about this massive, life-altering freedom. It's about a people set free from total bondage so they could live for the one who rescued them. And that leaves us with a question we really have to wrestle with for ourselves. If you've been set free by this greater eternal redemption, what are you living for now?